For the first time, Lori Vallow appearing before an Arizona judge while representing herself. The so-called Doomsday mom, who used to live in Arizona, was already convicted of killing her kids in Idaho, but is now facing charges here. The I-Team's Erica Stapleton was in the courtroom earlier today. And Erica, what was it like to hear Lori Vallow speak for herself?
Well, Tram, having covered these cases for nearly 5 years, it's been really stunning to see how different her trial in Idaho was compared to what her trials are shaping up to be here. Lori Vallow will now be called Lori Daybell in court, which she said is her legal name, and she came ready to argue. Vallow Daybell was convicted in 2023 in Idaho for killing her children, Tylee and JJ, who used to live here in the valley. She was sentenced to life in prison in Idaho, and her current husband, Chad Daybell, was sentenced to death in Idaho for the same case. Back in Arizona, she's facing 2 conspiracy to commit murder charges, one out of Chandler in the death of her former husband, the other a shooting attempt in Gilbert at her niece's ex-husband, who ultimately was not injured. Each case will have its own trial, and this morning she asked the judge to order the state to turn over records from her extradition.
This defense has yet to find any evidence of a conspiracy in the 100,939 pages that have been turned over by the state. The state does not get to say, like they did in their last motion to us, in their last answer, to say, oh, we gave you over 100,000 pages, so that ought to keep you busy. That's not how it works. These are serious charges, and these are serious consequences for these charges.
The judge seems skeptical, asking why the 2023 extradition would be relevant to the 2021 and 2022 indictments in the cases. The state said it did not intend to introduce extradition records at trial. The judge said he'll take all the matters under advisement. And Lori Vallow Daybell also said she intends to move forward without any delays. That first trial for conspiracy to kill her former husband is set to start in March, Tram.
Wow, that's interesting. So I know you were there earlier this morning. What was that like to hear her representing herself?
Well, you know, it's interesting because you don't often get to see this, a defendant choosing to represent themselves, especially when they've had lawyers, by their side. And it was interesting to hear her use legal jargon. You could tell she's done some research or has had some opportunity to read things through and really put thought into what she's writing. But you also saw the judge question everything. And he said, when she was making this decision, he said, I will hold you to the same standard as an attorney. And even though it sounded like, she cited case law and she was using terms that you would hear typically a legal professional say, he said, I don't think that's really relevant to what we're trying to do moving forward with this case. So it was really, really interesting to see that demeanor. And I'll point out, I've noticed this before in her cases. She comes into the courtroom smiling and then she usually leaves smiling. And today it was particularly of note. I'll point out that her mother and sister were in the courtroom and she gave them a big smile as she walked out there. So it was really, really pretty surreal to see.
Yeah.
No, and it's tough because obviously the crimes in these cases have impacted so many families. And the sister that was in the courtroom today, she actually took the stand in Idaho. She was called by the prosecutors there against her sister. So it's obviously created a tough dynamic, and the accusations here in Arizona are just as horrible as the ones up in Idaho. And again, Lori Vallow has maintained her innocence here. She says she's not guilty, and she's hoping to take this case forward with not 1, but 2 trials. So we'll certainly be on the lookout to see what happens next.
In March.
Yeah, in March. That's when they're starting.
Erica, thank you.